Welcome to a shocking yet intriguing video. We are about to explore the deep and dark secrets of the Chinese concubine culture that will leave you appalled. Although it may seem hard to believe, there were some horrific things that were considered normal for these women back in the day. From food binding to genital mutilation, we uncover how these ancient practices shaped the lives of concubines and why they still haunt us today. Brace yourselves as we delve into this heart-wrenching journey together. A concubine in ancient China was typically a woman who was not married to a man but who lived with him and had intimate relations with him. There were a number of different types of concubines, and their status depended on the legal status of the relationship with a man. In some cases, concubines were treated as wives, while in others, they were seen as little more than sexual slaves. The practice of having concubines was abolished in 1949, but it was a common practice for many centuries before that. Concubines were often given to men as gifts by their families, or they were purchased from slave dealers. Many young women ended up as concubines against their will, and their lives could be very difficult. Concubines were usually kept in secluded areas of the home, away from the wife and children. They were often poorly treated, and their only purpose was to serve the men physically. In some cases, concubines were abused and mistreated horribly. They could be beaten, tortured, and even killed by their owners. Despite the risks, some women choose to become concubines because it gives them a chance to live a better life than they would have otherwise. Concubines often came from poor families, and they hoped that by becoming someone's concubine, they would be able to improve their lot in life. Life as a Chinese concubine in ancient times was far from ideal. These women were often treated as property, bought and sold by their husbands or families. They had no rights and were expected to serve their masters obediently. Although they lived in luxury, concubines were not allowed to have any contact with the outside world. They were not permitted to leave the premises of the household, and they had to obey strict rules regarding their behavior and appearance. Concubines who bore children were especially prized, as they ensured the continuation of the family line. The life of a Chinese concubine was one of servitude and isolation. These women had no choice but to accept their fate and try to make the best of a difficult situation. The concubines were also not allowed to have any kind of relationship with other concubines. They were expected to be completely loyal to the emperor and only serve him. If they were found to be in any way disloyal, they would be punished severely. The life of a Chinese concubine was one that was full of restrictions and rules. However, despite all of these horrid conditions, they were still expected to serve the emperor faithfully and without complaint. The horrific practices and customs of Chinese concubines were many and varied. They were often forced to endure brutal beatings, sexual abuse, and extreme poverty. They were also sometimes required to serve as human sacrifices, either as part of religious rituals or to appease the spirits of dead rulers. Some concubines were kept in cages so small that they could barely move, while others were forced to wear heavy metal masks that made it difficult to breathe. Some were even put on display in public places like marketplaces and temples, where they could be ogled and groped. The life of a Chinese concubine was one of constant fear, insecurity, and misery. These women had no rights and no protections against the abuses they suffered. They lived in a state of constant terror, not knowing when or how their next nightmare would begin. From rigorous training regimes to losing their freedom and dignity, Chinese concubines faced horrific conditions during the imperial era. These women endured a life of servitude and were often subject to physical and emotional abuse from their masters. It is heartbreaking that these terrible things were considered normal for Chinese concubines at the time. Thankfully, today's society has come a long way in recognizing the rights of all people, regardless of gender or class. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great content. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload from us.